This program is sponsored in part by the National Catholic Society of Foresters. Hello again and welcome to Looking at Social Justice. I'm almost getting tired of saying I enjoy so much this program because I meet such interesting people, but that's the truth. Today I have two. Today we're going to be looking at the issue of Fresno, the issue of violence, the issue of policing, the issue of possible solutions to gang violence, all of that with two great guests. One of them happens to be a first-time guest for me, is Captain Mark Salazar, who is a captain working in Southwest Fresno, and we're going to be meeting Captain for the first time. But he's going to be joined by someone you may remember from another program, Aaron Foster, who is a community organizer with Faith in the Valley. They work together on different projects, so it was I think a very blessed event that I could put the two of them on one show, because what Captain is going to do with his explanation of his philosophy of policing, how it is that for 23 years he's presented himself as an upstanding policeman, along with Aaron Foster, who is going to be representing an effort to look at a change in what might be standard operating procedure for how we're going to stop violence in Fresno. A perfect match. Two great friends. Captain, can you begin by maybe self-introducing just a little, and when you get to the part about Boston, I might say something.
Okay, great. I've been in Fresno for 30 years, and so I grew up in Bakersfield, California, East Bakersfield, and I'm just gonna give you a quick little blurb about me growing up. So I grew up in a tough neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood similar to Southeast Fresno, Southwest Fresno. And so growing up in that neighborhood, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of street gangs, and there was a prison gang. And so during that time, there was a lot of violence. And so for me, I was a kid that had a show bike. I was a kid at a young age that drove a 76 Monte Carlo lowrider. I was a kid that was from the neighborhood. And so at one point, my father went to prison. My mother said, hey, you need to go live with your grandparents. And that's like taking a kid from Calawa and saying, you're gonna go live in Bullard. And my grandparents were established. My grandfather ran Local 220, but it was away from the neighborhood. And so I went to go live there. And so at that point, that was 7th and 8th grade, I lived there until I was done after high school. But it saved me though, because I studied, I played basketball, and then I came to Fresno State afterwards, and the rest was history. So for me, but I also had a younger brother that didn't have that opportunity, and he went through the system of CYA, CDC, gang member, always around guns, and so I always felt bad that he didn't get that opportunity to do that. So I became an officer after graduating from Fresno State, and I've been in the department now for 23 years.
It's amazing, like I said, the people I meet on this program. Aaron, can you reintroduce, saying maybe something different from the last time you self-introduced? Tell us something about yourself.
Well, I'm Aaron Foster, a community organizer for Faith in Fresno. Faith in the Valley is a big organization. And I grew up in Compton. I joined the gang when I was 12 years old. Moved, 4 of my friends got killed in one summer. So my mom moved us to Fresno when I was 16, and I went through all of the things that young men go through that's trying to find themselves that belong to a gang. So throughout my violent history as a young man, I became an older man and I lost children, and I wanted to start doing something to keep people from losing children. So here I am today, working with Mark Salazar. It wasn't hard for me to work with Mark because my uncle was a police officer, so I didn't see police officers as labels. I saw them all human beings with jobs to do. So it was easy to make the transition, and then Mark treated me like a human. He really didn't have the energy of a police officer. It was more like a regular person. So we met, and we've been here from day one.
This is amazing that the two of you are able to be on the same show, because one day I was trying to get a match off with the captain, and Aaron said, oh, I like Captain Salazar. We could talk together about some issues. So let's begin with an issue. I did a program recently and I learned 4 words: agitate, hope, urgency, and yes we can. So agitating would be an issue that we want to talk about, which is violence. So Captain, can you address from your experience how you see violence, let's say in your experience in Fresno? So locate the parts you want to address. Talk to us about violence and why that is agitating you, how that is motivating you, what you see that's negative: violence, guns, deaths, homicides, gangs.
You know, it destroys families. And so for me, one of my jobs as a lieutenant, I was the homicide robbery commander for 7 years. And unfortunately, that job brought me to Southwest Fresno and Southeast Fresno too many times. And so being in that job, we were right there. We were speaking for victims. We were dealing with those issues. And then we were dealing with retaliation, because Fresno has a long history of gangs, the gang crime, violent crime. And so being there for 7 years, I mean, we investigated thousands of shootings, numerous murders. And so for me, at that point, I went to Southeast Fresno as a district commander. And at that point, I started enjoying community policing, because now I could do that. Because before, my job was disrupting gangs, search warrants, arresting people that were responsible for gun violence. And it was a lot. It was a lot. And so when I went to Southeast Fresno, we started doing things like PICA. We got involved with the PICA program from the beginning, middle to the end. We, almost elementary, we took their 6th grade class to Disneyland, where the students there couldn't dream, and I worked with the teacher, Juana Aguilar. I worked in Calwa when Angie Brenzel was a principal there, and she said, "Hey, Mark, I'm having some problems with some kids." And that made sense, because at the time I'm hearing the Calwa Bulldogs were doing some things in that neighborhood. So we took some kids and took them to a Fresno State basketball game. And they were kids. As Aaron knows, when you live in that neighborhood, you have to be tough. You have to have an edge to you. And what I wanted to do was put them in an environment where they don't have that edge, where they could just be a kid for that short time. And so we started doing those things, and I was working with the Southeast Boys and Girls Club with Ron Zisler, and we were doing some great things, and then I got a phone call from the chief: "I need you on the west side." And so I came to the west side July of 2016. When I came to Southwest Fresno, if Southwest Fresno goes, the whole city goes as far as violence. And Aaron knows that when we have gang shootings, especially with the African American gangs, we'll have shootings 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 after that. And throughout the city, not just in Southwest. And so when I came, we were averaging a shooting a day in Southwest. And so how do we stop it? And we did stop it, and we did a lot of things for that, but it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. Every day I wake up, and it keeps me up at night. How do we keep our streets safe? Because we have such a rich history of gangs. We have young kids that we're fighting over, trying to mentor them, but the gangs are doing the same thing. And so it's a competing interest. And so for me, we've had some success in Southwest, but we've only had that success because of our partnerships. And Aaron knows this. When I talk about crime reductions, I do it with a half heart, because he lost a daughter a couple of years ago. I know Aaron, I know his grandmother, I know her aunt. They're friends of mine. And so you'll never hear me loudly talk about our crime reductions, even though that's important. That I know that hurts, and so I'm respectful in that.
Yeah. Aaron, what would be, in a nutshell, what most agitates you? What's the heart of the violence? What is the essence of it? When you shrink it down, what's at its core?
What agitates me the most is the origin of it. It's usually something so small that a conversation will fix it. Facebook post, a fight in the street, somebody's girlfriend, a bunch of bickering. And that turns into people dying. So that's the most agitational part of it. And that's been the solution to it. A lot of it we get in front of. When we catch it, we get right in front of it and see what we can do to settle it without it erupting into something that's going to be detrimental for entire families forever.
So the second word after agitation is you've got to have hope, says Kevin Hall. You move from being agitated, concerned, really almost sometimes disgusted or just dumbfounded. Then you move to hope. So what would be, Captain, the hope you have as you even move forward in your own career, but also as you continue doing what you're doing, what is your hope for Fresno, Southwest, Southeast, the whole of the city?
You know, I was asked this by Chief Dyer years ago when he promoted me to sergeant. This was a long time ago now. And he goes, what drives you and what motivates you? And because I'm pretty intense. And I said, what drives me and motivates me is the kid that lives in the 400 block of West Strother should feel safe as the kid lives at Champlain and Perrin. And you could substitute 400 West Strother for Calwa, Lane and Winery, for Peach and Olive, and even up to north area, Pontiac and Effie, Quigley Park neighborhood. And so we have work to do. And what I've done, I'm on the Fresno Pal board. We specifically have and intentionally went into Southwest Fresno, Southeast Fresno, and Central Fresno in that order, and said we need to work with the youth and focus on them, because due to poverty, educational challenges, the richness of gang crime, violent crime, that's where we need to start, and that's where we need to pour our resources into, because if not, we're going to have a problem. And so, real quickly, years ago, I was part of a board of mentoring, an organization that mentors, and I would ask, this was over 10 years ago, I would ask the kids in Southwest, how does that look like, the mentees? A lot of mentees, no mentors. It went on year after year. And I left that board knowing that there had to be a grassroots movement to get that going. And so I saw a new director and I asked, how did that look like? And no one ever showed up. And so I think we lost a generation or generations of mentors. And I think one of the things, and I don't know if Aaron agrees with me or not, I don't think we talked about this, is the lack of men in their in their life, a lack of fatherhood. Because I mentor some kids right now in Southwest, and I'll pick them up. I'll pick them up on South Lotus, I'll pick them up on South Maud, and they're all being raised by their grandmothers right now. Nothing wrong with that. We have strong grandmothers, we have strong mothers, we have strong aunties. They're doing a great job. In fact, right now we opened a PAL gym at the Hinton Center, and you'll have mothers and you'll have cousins and females that are taking their kids, and you can tell the kids don't want to be there at first, and they're saying, hey, you go in there and you work out. So applaud that, but one thing that I see is a lack of a man in their relation, in their. So for me, is how can we be a role model? We're not the answer. We're a part of it, along with community leaders, community groups out there that are out there, the churches. And I think right now, 10 years ago, when you didn't have a mentor, that ain't gonna be the case no more. I think there's momentum going on in the city, from Southwest Fresno to Southeast Fresno to North Fresno, and that's what excites me.
What excites you? What's your hope? We kind of know from another program what it is, but tell us again. What's your hope, Aaron?
The same thing. We're totally in agreement of. I hope that one day that the same safety that we have in North Fresno, we'll have in every other part of Fresno. That we have unified safety for everyone. That's my dream. And I'm hopeful, but I see the change. In 2 short years, we see a big difference. Was it 2 years or 3 years?
3 years.
In 3 years.
In 3 years, we've seen shootings cut in half in Southwest Fresno. We've seen violent crime cut by 42%. But again, that's great. But again, we have tragedy. We have stories of tragedy. And so, and we seem to have that every year. There's always a tragic story. And we had one this year too. And so, we need to do a better job, but we're not the answer. We're not the whole answer, and so for us to work together, I've never seen us working together with so many different groups right now. And when I say different groups, I'm talking about our school officials, our school leaders. I'm talking about our community leaders, our community action groups, Fresno Housing Authority, Fresno EOC, the churches. There's a different pool right now going on, and a passion that again is exciting.
And so what I'm happy to know is that we were here in the beginning. And we made our community a lot more comfortable working with police officers because they're comfortable working with us. So it was like a segue into a relationship. In our youth, I'm seeing a whole lot of it. PAL has been amazing as far as having resources and giving our children something to do. Because in Southwest Fresno, we didn't have any activities for our youth. We had the Boys and Girls Club, but it was limited to the people that lived in that area. Because of the gangs, you couldn't merge into a different area because it was harmful for you at whatever age you are. So now we have a place where anybody can come because of relationships. And it started with people coming to Frank H. Ball. And no matter what neighborhood you were from, you can come to Frank H. Ball on Wednesdays, watch movies, play video games, eat food, listen to music, and just be a community. So that was the beginning of what we have right now.
And that was our idea last summer. And so me and Lieutenant Dave Ramsey, okay, at nighttime, what are opportunities for our youth in Southwest? What can a kid do in Southwest at nighttime? And it was very limited, if anything, right? And so we said, okay, how about we keep the park open and bring movies in the park? We got with Parks Department. They were on board. We had to have partners and some community members and leaders in organizations. And we started keeping the pool till late at night. We had basketball games, community center versus community center, and they're coached by community leaders, where they had uniforms. And we even had the new Fresno State basketball coach come down and talk to them. We fed them burgers, hot dogs, you name it, and then movies in the parks. We were there probably every last Wednesday till about 11 o'clock at night. And so this, we had one last night, and then we call it Good Times. We're back at Frank H. Ball. But these kids now can go and have a good time. They can go out and run and be a kid. And I don't have to worry about them running around at MLK in California at night. I'd rather have them run at Frank H. Ball where it's a safe environment, a safe zone. And we have challenges because there's times when we have a gang feel to it. And as an officer, as a community leader, you know it and you feel it. And there was one about 3 weeks ago, and it was pretty strong, and we squashed it. But then I went to community leaders and said, hey, you gotta let them know this is a safe zone, and we haven't had that issue since then. So that's the cooperation that we have and the understanding, because they know we're doing it out of the goodness of our heart, and we know their influence in the gang community as well, as far as helping us with that.
Aaron, tell us a little bit about these community leaders. So when you say, we have partnered with the PD, who are the we? Who are some of your allies, your partners, your colleagues?
So the most violent individuals in Fresno that have had to change their heart because of the losses that we have. Everyone that I know has either been a victim of gunshot wounds or know somebody really close to them has been a victim. So once you get older, and you start looking at life for what life really is, you never even expect to live to see 21 or 18 years old. So now you're in your mid or late 40s and you know that this is a reality and an opportunity that every human being should have. You try to do something to ensure life and change for everyone around us. So the people that have the most influence are the ones on board. They'd rather be offline. So when I say we, I get credit, Aaron Foster, a community leader, but I can't do it without them. And these people don't want to be in front of police officers, and they don't want to be in front of camera. So I always say us and we, because these are the people that I'm talking about. So I get the credibility. Aaron Foster, you're doing a great job, but it's the team of people, and it's not just one or five. It's the entire community of people. I don't think that the ex-gang members or current gang members should get all the credit. We have mothers and grandmothers and a lot of women that's doing this push to help. At football games, I have a 4 and a 5-year-old. We go to football practice every day from 6 to 8, and there's more women on the field with the children than men. I can only count 5 men, but I can count 13 women that show up every day. So these mothers are the mothers of our community. These are the church mothers, the grandmothers, and common women that are a big push as well. So our entire community get credit for keeping our community together.
I am so glad I asked that, because it lets those who heard or saw this answer. It is a community that needs to do this. It's not only a few that you can name as leaders, it's the body of the neighborhood and of the sector and of the part of the city. It's the whole city together. The third principle that Kevin says we got to talk about is the urgency. So where do both of you see at this point in history the urgency of an end to the bloodshed that we have? Why is it so urgent now?
It's urgent now because every life matters. I give an analogy of a rose. You cut a rose and it's beautiful, but that rose is dead once you cut it. That's how we see our lives. The lives of these young men and women, myself, we're like those roses. We're supposed to live until our rose petals fall off and we plant seeds and they grow to be roses as well. Once you cut a rose, that opportunity is gone. So I want all us to live to be ripe old ages. And it's very urgent because if we don't do something today, somebody's gonna die tomorrow. And that's especially at this time of the year. One thing Captain Salazar and myself know for sure, every summer somebody's gonna die. We shouldn't even expect that at all. But that's something that we know.
Captain, why is it so urgent now? You've been an officer for 23 years. Do you find it, I'm just proposing, more urgent now than when you were a rookie? Or is it, no, it's been urgent all the time? Or are we at a tipping point? Is this a most urgent time?
I think we are at a tipping point, but I think we have no more community leaders now, because when I was in Southwest 23 years ago, it didn't have this feel, and so we have it now. And so you have some people doing some great things out there: teachers, principals, vice principals. You got a lot of caring going on out there, and doing different programs. In fact, right now there's one there at Bitwise talking about a summer algebra class they took in Southwest Fresno, and Southwest Youth are part of that. And so for me, but it's important because our youth, we have a lot of youth, and we're a young city, and when you see them, the opportunity for mentorship is there. And so I don't know if we have enough mentors for the youth, and so that kind of keeps me up at night. And so for us to work together is even more important. And for us in Southwest, we don't do prison tours, we do college tours. And there's many times when we take those kids to Fresno State,
yeah.
we go to dorms, we go to the famous bowling alley. I want to expose those kids to things that and you'd be surprised. You think, okay, someone grew up in 93706, they know, they've been at Fresno State, they've been here. No, you'll be shocked to know that no, they haven't gone to Fresno State before. And so I want to expose them to that environment, and that they could do that. And then let the educators get them to that point, right? And so we all have a role, and that's how I look at it. And so for me, I'm focused on the youth, but there's also a group out there that's older than the youth, that are in their late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, that they need work too. And I think that's where Aaron comes in with his group. They could work with them, because we're having a lot of success with our youth here, but there's another group out there, and they're vulnerable just as the youth are too.
Would you agree with the captain that that's your demographic? It might be a little older.
Yeah, man, that's the same thing. They never had a chance to just breathe. They never been to Fresno State. So the same model that works with the youth works for the older children, older young men as well. They need something to be excited about.
When I came to Southwest, the importance of the community center in Southwest Fresno, and we have numerous community centers out there: Maxie Park, Sunset, Bigby, the Boys and Girls Club, Think White, and the one on Tulare. Numerous community centers. They play an incredible role, because these kids, they'll tell you, they'll go there, they'll get some homework done if they can, they'll eat, they'll play some games, and they'll go home. And they'll tell you they'll go home to a chaotic home. And so they're not like, and that's what keeps me up at night too sometimes, is they don't have their own room. They don't have their own Apple laptop computer. They don't have a tutor that they can have. And so for me, that's what keeps me up at night as well. And so for us, the community centers were important. So we had a basketball game a couple of years ago against the Southwest community. We lost, but we raised $9,000. And my Lieutenant Ramsey and we ended up purchasing things that they needed, whatever they needed for those community centers. And that December, we gave them to those different community centers. And so the value of the community center is very important in Southwest Fresno. I think more so than any other communities in the city, but it's pretty important.
The thing about that's the only thing that's normal, that we have. What's normal to us is a tragedy for other people in this other parts of the city. So I really appreciate the community center, and every neighborhood has one. Unfortunately, these community centers are all in gang territories as well. So we need to start bringing them together, which we've been doing, what Powell has been doing, having all the communities meet in one place so that you don't have territorial communities and you won't get segregated. And the one thing about mentorship that we keep forgetting is that we don't have positive mentors. We have a lot of negative mentors that are lying in the way. So when we're sleeping, the gang members are alive and well. They don't rest. And that's something that is low-hanging fruit for a lost young man that wants to be loved. The streets are going to love you, but they're going to influence you to do things that are abnormal to the rest of the city.
And I used to ask as a homicide commander, and my detectives thought I was probably crazy, but I used to ask whether it be a victim or a suspect, what year of school were they? were they still going to school? And then I would ask, they really thought I was crazy, I would ask what their GPA was. And so they started asking the schools, and there was a correlation between, are you still in school? And if you are still in school, you're probably barely in school, like with a 1.0 GPA. And again, it's like, wow, okay, this kid has maybe seen the violence, maybe has a lot of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences already, and then now they're in this neighborhood, and you're right on the community center, because some community centers you can go to one, but you can't go to the other one, and that exists out there. But these community centers are serving hundreds of kids daily in Southwest and throughout the city as well, but in Southwest.
One last thing we're supposed to do in this program is talk about the Yes We Can. So you've already given so many examples of what's already going on. What's one thing that each of you could share, Aaron beginning, that maybe is your next thing that you know we can do? What is something that's going to give your hope, feet, arms, legs, that's going to give it a grounding? What's something we can do?
Yes, we can love each other. That's the biggest thing. None of this works without love. If love isn't in the heart of it, then it's never going to work. So love keeps violence suppressed. Love makes Northwest Fresno look at our children as they look at their own. Love gives them hope. And I'm hopeful that they reach out and give us the same opportunities to live as they have. I mean, I wouldn't want to live in Northwest Fresno, but I want to have the safety of living in my community because my community is more comfortable. I like to go to the old man park and watch them play dominoes and play a chess game. I like to drive past and see people hanging in the front yard. That's what we do at my aunt's house. I have 30 male cousins, and we can pass the hat and have a fish fry at the drop of a dime. And when we start frying fish, 30 people turn into 60 people hanging in the front yard, having a good time, just being family. Now, if you have a family that doesn't have love in it, it's not a family anymore.
Captain, 20 seconds, last thought.
I want our kids, whether it be Southwest Fresno, Southeast Fresno, North Fresno, to enjoy being a kid. I want them to be out there like we grew up playing basketball in the streets and not worry about another side driving through there. Because we have that reality, right? We have that reality, and there's certain neighborhoods in Southwest where if they see a car they don't know, the radars go up, right? And then we've had in the past where, yeah, it did belong to the other gang, right? And so I want kids to go and not have that edge. And we got so much work to do, and I want to expose them to things. I mean, we took some kids to Monterey Bay Aquarium, and there's one kid from Sunset who was scared. He wasn't scared because he was there. He had that look, and we know that when you grow up in a tough neighborhood, he had that look like he didn't belong. And so I told my younger son, I said, hey, wrap your arm around him and be with him. And at the end of the day, he belonged there, he belonged on Cannery Row, and he belonged at the water later that day. We need to do more of that. And I think what you're seeing is a big pool of it's going to happen.
I want to thank Captain Mark Salazar and Aaron Foster for sharing solutions to violence here in our city. We'll be back again, but for today, that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.
God bless till next time.